I often heard that wolves have a leader, the alpha male. He supposedly stands at the very top of the hierarchy, and from time to time, other members of the pack challenge him to take his place in a brutal struggle for power. This vivid image has firmly settled in our heads thanks to Hollywood films, books, documentaries, and even motivational speeches. But all this is a very popular and incredibly tenacious myth that still walks the world and continues to mislead people. Everything related to alpha, beta, and omega wolves actually has almost nothing to do with the real life of these amazing animals. But how did this happen? After all, there were scientific papers from 1947 about wolf packs. There were serious studies from the 70s about the structure of the pack. Isn't all this true? It turned out that yes, it was a mistake. It was in the 1947 paper that Rudolf Schenkel first proposed the theory of the alpha male and alpha female. But the problem was that he studied these animals not in the wild, but in a zoo in Switzerland, that is, in captivity, in a completely artificial environment. Later, in the 1960s, David Mech developed the theory of dominance based on observations of a wolf pack in a confined space. As you understand, observing natural behavior in completely unnatural conditions is far from the most scientific method. The wolves in these groups did not know each other before. They were forced to fight for survival in a stressful, artificial environment. And already in the 70s, the book by the same David Mech titled The Wolf, Ecology and Behavior of an Endangered Species was published. It became a real bestseller and greatly contributed to the popularization of the idea of the alpha wolf around the world, although the theory itself was already erroneous at that time. Years later, David Mech himself publicly refuted his own theory and even abandoned the term alpha wolf. He repeatedly asked his publisher to stop reprinting the book because the information in it was badly outdated and misled people. But it was already too late. This mistake became firmly entrenched in mass culture, in cinema, in literature, in business trainings, and even in everyday speech, where they still talk about alpha leaders. But what does a wolf pack actually represent? Why do wolves walk together? Who is in charge? Or do they have no leader at all, and they live as a self-sufficient, harmonious family? How do they manage to survive in such a large group? Why do they howl at the moon? And what is the real secret of the biology of one of the most mysterious, intelligent, and beautiful predators of the steppes and forests? The biology of wolves and their social structure is truly a unique and incredibly interesting thing. Very often in films and documentaries, we see fierce clashes between wolves for dominance in the pack, bloody fights for power. But in real life, such serious conflicts occur incredibly rarely. In the 1990s and 2000s, David Mech managed to habituate one of the wolf packs to his constant presence, which allowed him to observe the animals from a very close distance for 13 years. And the most interesting thing is that during all these years, he never once saw a single serious clash for dominance between wolves. So how is the wolf pack actually structured? In reality, a wolf pack is not just a group of predators or a gang. It is a real family in the most literal sense of the word. The leaders in this family are the parents, and all the other members are their children of different ages. Young wolves naturally and calmly obey their parents. The parents control the distribution of food and make sure that the smallest pups are always well-fed and reliably protected. All wolves eat the carcass of a killed animal together. If the prey is small, the parents eat first and then decide when the pups can join the meal. Although different wolf families may differ slightly in their structure. An interesting example is the wolf families from Scandinavia, which on average consist of 6 individuals. Most often these are 2 parents and 4 pups. Everything begins with the male and female choosing and defining their territory. They mark a large area of forest with their scent and actively protect it from other wolves. In February to March, mating occurs, and already in May, the pups are born. For the first few weeks, the male hunts alone, while the female stays with the offspring. Then they switch roles. The female starts going hunting, and the male remains to guard the den. Interestingly, wolf pairs remain faithful to each other and almost always walk together. Wolves are monogamous animals, and as a rule, they do not change partners until one of them dies. The period of caring for small pups is practically the only time when the parents hunt separately. Moreover, GPS collar data show that in more than 70% of cases, the male and female are always within 100 meters of each other. And already in September or October, the pups become old enough to sometimes accompany their parents on hunts, although they still remain waiting in a safe place. Mostly, the parents go hunting in the evenings and then return to the pups with prey. By November, the pups begin to gradually move farther away from their parents, but still do not go beyond the boundaries of their family territory. Some pups may wander separately from the pack for a couple of weeks and then return back. It is from November that the young wolves become more and more independent. Most of them leave their parents' pack when they turn 1 or 1.5 years old. By this time, they already look like full-grown adult wolves. The first wave of young leaves when the parents mate again, and the second when new pups are born. But some young wolves may remain on their parents' territory for another year or even 2 years, helping to raise their younger brothers and sisters. The fact that in Scandinavian wolves, the young animals become independent quite early somewhat contradicts the widespread opinion that a wolf pack is a super cohesive collective where everyone always stays together. But this concerns specifically Scandinavian wolves. In their case, most often only the parents hunt. But with American wolves, the picture is completely different. There, the children also actively participate in the hunt. American wolves are the classic example of a large family group, which can already rightly be called a pack. It is among them that one can observe large families where not only the parents go hunting, but also several of their grown-up pups. There are stunning video recordings from Yellowstone National Park where large packs hunt together. In such groups, wolves from 1 to 3 years old are present at the same time. The thing is that in Yellowstone, there is much more prey and completely different ecological conditions. When the density of the wolf population grows and many families live in a limited territory, the size of each pack naturally increases. Add to this the fact that in America, pups often leave the pack much later, so in one family there can simultaneously be parents and their offspring from the last 4 years. As a result, the pack size can vary from 5 to 30 individuals. Another interesting variety of pack arises when one of the parents dies and a new partner comes from outside, sometimes even with their own pups. In such cases, for example, the daughter of a widowed she-wolf may become the partner of her adoptive father, taking the place of the aging mother, who at the same time remains in the group. In large packs, it sometimes even happens that 2 females, mother and daughter, give birth to offspring at the same time. The daughter continues to obey her mother, but already raises her own pups herself. That is, the older mom still remains the main one, although formally they are both now parents. In such a situation, the older female could in principle be called an alpha, but even this case is quite rare, and the term alpha itself has long ceased to fit the real life of wolves. Remember the main thing: at the head of the pack is not an alpha male, but a parental pair, father and mother for most members of the group. All the others are their children of different ages, yearlings, 2-year-olds, sometimes even 3-year-olds, who help raise their younger brothers and sisters and participate in the hunt. The hierarchy in such a family is built not on aggression and constant struggle for dominance, as we were told before, but on respect for the parents and accumulated experience. It is much more like an ordinary human family with children of different ages. To communicate with each other and coordinate such a complex joint hunt, wolves use not only a variety of sound signals, howling, barking, snorting, but also rich facial expressions and visual signals. Thanks to this, they hunt very harmoniously, and their success largely depends on the clear coordination of actions of the entire family. In a large family group, it is the adult pair, especially the male, who most often acts as the leader and main organizer of the hunt. They simply have much more experience, they know the best places and the most effective tactics. Teenagers and young wolves from previous litters are already practically adult animals, and it is they who make up the main workforce in the hunt. They are faster, more energetic, and more resilient than their parents. Their task is to drive the prey, exhaust it, surround it, and only then do the parents coordinate the final stage and deliver the most important, decisive bites. Often, it is the young wolves who take on the most dangerous and difficult part of the work, pursuing and holding a large animal. And, of course, wolves communicate not only during the hunt. Scientists led by Sarah Marshall Thompson found out that wolf packs even decide where to move next literally by voting. If a wolf wants to go in a certain direction, it stands up, looks interested, and active. If it is tired or disagrees, it simply remains lying down. In addition, wolves constantly communicate with each other using howling, snorting, and even yawning. All these sounds and gestures are part of their complex language, with the help of which they transmit important information inside the family. In general, all this complex coordination, both during hunting and during migrations, shows wolves as very intelligent animals. And this is really true. A wolf is able to remember much more information and coordinate its actions faster than a dog. The brain volume of a wolf is 20 to 30% larger than that of dogs, especially the areas responsible for smell and vision. Therefore, wolves are significantly more intelligent. Their survival depends on a whole complex of complex skills that domestic dogs simply do not need. In addition, wolves are much better at solving puzzles. In tests on independently opening a box with food, wolves often showed brilliant results, significantly surpassing dogs. They also have better developed spatial thinking and a mental map of the territory. A wolf perfectly remembers huge spaces, migration routes of prey, and all dangerous places. It must itself assess the risk, track down the victim, come up with a hunting strategy, and make decisions in real time. It is precisely thanks to such high intelligence that wolves are almost impossible to truly train. Their goal is their own benefit and the survival of the pack, not following commands for food. We are used to thinking that if a dog obediently follows commands, it means it is smart. In fact, this is not entirely true. In the process of domestication, humans unconsciously selected dogs not according to the trait the smartest and most independent, but according to the trait the friendliest and most manageable. This led to the so-called domestication syndrome, because of which the brain volume and skull size decreased. That is why all the wolves you see in films and circuses are actually not pure wolves, but wolf dogs, hybrids of wolf and dog, which are much easier to train. Real wild wolves simply cannot be forced to follow commands the way dogs do. The physical abilities of wolves also amaze the imagination. They are incredibly resilient and can cover up to 80 kilometers in a day. They have high, strong legs and large paws that are noticeably more elongated than those of dogs. The narrow, streamlined chest and sloping back are perfectly adapted for long distances. If necessary, a wolf can reach a speed of up to 60 kilometers per hour, accelerating to a gallop in just a few seconds. And moreover, between the toes on their paws, there are small webs that help them swim excellently and cover several kilometers by swimming. However, there are also sad facts. Wolves became one of the first animals to be taken under protection as a species threatened with extinction. Although not all wolf subspecies are currently in critical condition, we still should not even allow the thought that these amazing predators might disappear. These are truly wonderful animals about which we have been greatly mistaken for many years. And may they continue to live with us for many, many more years. If you liked this video, smash that like button, subscribe to the channel, and of course, remember, thinking is useful.